Eating, counting, and getting around. Who would have thought that those are things that Americans do differently than Germans? Hallo, Servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Felicia. I was born and raised in Munich, Germany, but I have been living off and on in Cincinnati, Ohio since 2016. So 2 weeks ago, I made a video about 5 things that Americans do differently than Germans, and I got so much amazing feedback on that video, and so many of you requested a part 2, so here it is. 5 more things that I noticed Americans do differently than I did in the beginning and than what I was used to from Germany. This kind of sounds like a dumb stereotype that Americans don't walk anywhere and even take their car even if they only have to go around the corner. So obviously Americans do walk, but especially in places like Cincinnati, where it's pretty easy to find parking, people definitely do drive way more than Germans do. I had an experience shortly after I first moved here. So my American roommate and I wanted to get dinner at a close-by restaurant. So we walked out of the house and I naturally started walking down the street. But my roommate naturally started walking to her car, and it actually took me a second to realize that she didn't just need something out of her car, but she was actually going to drive. I looked up the distance from back then, and the restaurant that we wanted to go to was about half a mile away from us, and it was actually in an area where parking is kind of tricky to find. Like, you'll definitely have to drive around for a bit to find a spot, and then you'll still have to walk to the restaurant from wherever you parked. Me coming straight from Munich, I would have never thought about getting into the car for half a mile, but I have to admit that I have been Americanized in the past few years, and I kind of do those things now too. Not always, of course. I sometimes walk on purpose, but it definitely crosses my mind that I could also take the car even if it's just gonna be a 5-minute walk. And Americans don't just drive short distances, they also do a lot of things out of their car. So Germans, buckle up. Not only are there drive-thrus for fast food restaurants, but also for Starbucks and other coffee shops, which can be really convenient in the mornings. And there are things like drive-through pharmacies to get your medication and drive-through ATMs. You can get cash without leaving your car. That was crazy to me at first. And when I first got a car here in the US, that was one of the first things I wanted to do, just because I had never seen a drive-through ATM before I came here. Mind-blowing and definitely convenient, but sometimes this can also be kind of dangerous because it's very easy to get used to all of this and actually stop walking places. I mean, obviously, this is very different in the big crowded cities, but here and in other places of the US where it's not as crowded, your car is definitely your best friend. In Germany, it depends too, of course, but as I've mentioned before, the public transportation system there is very advanced, and especially in the cities, it's often more stressful than convenient to have a car. So a lot of people use the public transportation system, and then of course they walk to the stop, they walk in between the stops, and then they maybe walk from the stop to the final destination. And a lot of people just ride their bicycles wherever they need to go in Germany, and that's actually what I used to do in Munich too before I came here, and I actually miss that a lot. I actually took my bike to school every day from 5th through 12th grade. I would take it to the nearest subway station, and I also took it to work and university, which was like a 30-minute ride one way. Munich is a very bike-friendly city. There are bikes everywhere. There's bike garages, bike racks, bike lanes, and drivers are also used to watching out for cyclists. In the US, that's only common in a few cities, and here in Cincinnati, there's only a couple bike lanes and almost no bike racks. And the few people that I know that actually do take their bike to places have almost all been in an accident before because drivers just aren't used to watching out for them. Americans dress differently than Germans, and by that I mean that they often dress more casually. So wearing gym clothes, leggings, and merchandise out in public is pretty common here, especially in the Midwest. Not at the office, of course, but at schools and universities that's pretty common, and just in your free time. So you'll see a lot of people wear like gym shorts or sweatpants out in the store or at a restaurant. At least during the day, because I kind of feel like there's a pretty big difference between how people dress during the day and at night here. Like the same girl that wore leggings and a t-shirt that she got for free from an organization, a messy ponytail and no makeup to university will suddenly be really dressed up at night when she goes out to the bars and clubs. In Germany, and this applies to other European countries as well, I want to say that there isn't as big of a gap. We dress nicer during the day and then only change it up slightly when we go out. And I'd never go to the store in sweatpants in Germany on a normal day. It's possible that my experience is a little extreme because Munich is a rather rich and fashionable city, but we always dressed up pretty nicely for high school. Girls even sometimes wore dresses and high heels depending on what was in at the time, and I would never go to the store wearing sweatpants in Germany on a normal day. Germans don't really do that. We don't really wear sports clothes as normal outfits all that much. But I gotta say that I actually like how casual things are here in the US. It seems like people are a lot less judgy, and you don't really have to worry about getting weird looks when you look like shit on a Sunday morning, but you still want to go out and get something from the store. And there is another thing related to this that I've observed a lot in the US. It seems like Americans don't feel the cold, and I'm so jealous of that. I feel like Germans always wear layers and prefer to be dressed rather too warm than too cold, but here in the US, I see people walk around in gym shorts in the winter all the time, even when it's below freezing. I've seen people wear flip-flops during the worst rain on a freezing day when my feet felt like they're dying even through my thick boots. Just the other day when I left my house in the morning, it was like 1 or 2 degrees Celsius, so pretty cold. I was wearing my thickest coat and gloves in the car, and I saw so many people walk around in just sweaters, no coat. And the crazy thing is they never seem to notice anything. They don't seem to be cold. And just last week, there was a really nice day, about like 16 degrees Celsius, so I decided to walk to the store actually, and I saw like 20 people only wearing shorts and t-shirts. And I mean, yes, it was a nice day, but it wasn't that warm yet, and I feel like you wouldn't see that a lot in Germany. This is something that really surprised me in the US, and it took me a while to get used to it. In a lot of cases, when you fill out a form, like when you enroll for something or you fill out a survey or even for the US Census, you'll be asked for your race or ethnic identity. The options vary sometimes, but usually you can pick between Caucasian/white, African American, Native American, Hispanic, Asian, and then sometimes there's an option like other or mixed. It's not always mandatory, but sometimes it is, and even kids have to do that sometimes to check one of those boxes. And again, I was pretty shocked when I first saw that. That's not a thing in Germany, and I feel like it's not a thing in other European countries either, but I'm not quite sure about that. But I'm sure that this has a lot to do with both the history of the United States and the history of Germany. For Germans, race is a very sensitive word, obviously mostly because of the ideologies and study of race of the Nazis in the Third Reich. But I personally also find it difficult linguistically because Rasse in German means both race and breed. So it just sounds a little degrading to me. And since this isn't really something that we use in Germany anymore, I feel like I also never really thought in those categories, like there's a white race, an Asian race, etc. Like yes, people do look different, but for me, and I want to say for a lot of other Germans too, we just don't think about it in those race categories anymore. I personally think more along the lines of this person comes from Germany, this person is from the United States, this person has some roots from Turkey, this person is from Africa, etc. But I mean, I would only know if that person had told me, obviously. I mean, it doesn't really matter anyway where someone is from, but if anything, I think about where that person was born or where their parents were born and not what race they are. So when I saw that whole race thing in the US at first, I was kind of shocked. I know that here it's often asked for good reasons, like to support minorities or to keep track of demographics, but I still personally find this a little problematic because I feel like it kind of puts this thought into people's head that there even is a race, that people are different, that this is something that matters, that's something that's part of your personal identity. So I'm still kind of wondering if this is something that may be more problematic and actually enforce segregation than it does good. Americans eat out so much more than Germans do, and again, the US is definitely the country of convenience. It's just so easy and quick to get food here. And not only your typical fast food places like McDonald's and Taco Bell, but there's also so many healthy fast food places here. Like you can get rice bowls or salads or Asian food or all kinds of things. But even if you go to a normal sit-down restaurant, it's very noticeable that the food comes a lot quicker than at the average German restaurant. I've mentioned this before, but eating out in Germany and in other European countries is often more than just going there, eating your food and leaving. It's about the whole experience. I mean, maybe during your lunch break it'll be like that you just go there, eat and leave. But usually Germans spend quite some time at a restaurant, sometimes several hours, and it's also quite common that the food will take 30 minutes or longer after you ordered. In the US, I'd say waiting for your food 20 minutes is already kind of long, so it's just easier to eat out a lot in the US, and it's not always for a special occasion, but often literally just to eat something. And especially with people my age, I've kind of seen that a lot, that for a lot of them it's pretty common to eat out every single day or to get takeout every single day. And if they ever eat at home, it's mostly gonna be instant meals, whereas in Germany, eating out every day is definitely not common at all. The default is really to eat at home, and almost every German gets groceries several times a week. This is a follow-up on what I said about handwriting and numbers in the part 1 video. Some of these things are probably very well known, but maybe not all of you guys know this. So not only do Germans and Americans write certain numbers and letters differently, I've also noticed that some Americans actually write in all capitals, which I've never seen a German do before. And when it comes to numbers, we use the point and the comma differently. In the US, when there's a big number, there's gonna be a comma after every third digit and a decimal point before the decimals. So $1,000.50 would look like this. In Germany, however, we do it the other way around. For big numbers, we either don't use anything to separate the digits, or if we do, it's going to be a space or a period. And then before the decimals, we always put a comma. So 1,000 euros and 50 cents looks like this. And we also put the currency behind the number and not in front of it like you do it in the US. So this whole decimal point and comma thing can lead to a lot of confusions and misunderstandings between Germans and Americans, and so can the word billion. In English, you have 1,000, a million, and a billion. A billion has 9 zeros. In German, we also have the word Billion, but it stands for a number with 12 zeros. The American billion with 9 zeros is what we call Milliarde. So this can get really confusing, and I'm sure there have been a lot of translation mistakes. And it's the same with dates, we do that differently too. And honestly, to this day, I sometimes have to concentrate really hard and focus on which date system I'm currently looking at and what it means. In the US, you write the month first, then the day, then the year, separated by slashes, or it can be periods too. In Germany, we write day, month, year, separated by periods. So this date right here could be either read as March 10th, 2020, or as October 3rd, depending on which system you're using. And last but not least, I wanted to mention this because so many of you guys left a comment about this, and it's that Germans and Americans count differently with their fingers. And if you paid close attention, you also probably noticed that I did that in the part 1 video. Americans count like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, while Germans start with their thumb. We go like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 4 is a little weird because if I'm not actually counting but just holding up the number 4, I'll still do it like the Americans do because it's just like very inconvenient to do it like this. I'm sure a lot of you guys know this from the movie Inglourious Basterds because that's how the spy gets caught in the end, because he does the finger counting wrong. And I've also played with it in one of my very first videos, the video on the 3 biggest differences between Germany and the US. This was 5 things that Americans do differently than Germans part 2. If you haven't checked out part 1, you should definitely do that. And I actually still have a lot of things left on my list, so I'm kind of thinking about making a part 3. What do you guys think? Would you want to watch that? Let me know by giving this video a thumbs up and leaving a comment below. And of course, as always, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for free, and also make sure to activate the bell to get notifications for new video uploads. Follow me on Instagram, and I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!